The lost Richfield Tower was emblematic of a time when the architecture of the city of Los Angeles was graceful and elegant. In fact, the building was so rich in conceptual motifs that in its demolition, at least two remnants, the building's original doors, were preserved and are now on display inside City National Plaza. And it's in this context that we can truly appreciate just how magnificent Richfield Tower once was. The simple presence of these doors inside a modern building brings an essence of culture and heritage to a space that is otherwise dull and soulless. So join me as we discover what was inside this great tower, why it was demolished, and what remains in the modern day. I'm your host Ryan Sokash, and you're watching It's History. Los Angeles has a complex history, with its development as a Native American trade settlement marking the earliest evidence of human civilization in the region. This can be appreciated in the various archaeological sites, such as shell mounds and rock art, found in the immediate area. However, the trade route in particular is what would later be embraced upon Spanish colonization. You see, this primitive network allowed the Europeans to access known resources, mobilize military units, establish the region's dominance, and expand with trade and commerce. When Europeans first arrived, the area was distinguished by its natural landscape throughout the centuries, a landscape that gradually would be crafted by architecture. Following Mexican rule of the area, California enjoyed the gold rush. Although the epicenter of this was elsewhere, LA's population enjoyed a massive influx of people and by 1850 was incorporated as a city. From there, development set on rapidly. In 1876, the Southern Pacific Rail connection allowed direct access to the greater United States. In 1913, the LA Aqueduct ensured a stable water supply for a growing population. 1914 saw the opening of the Panama Canal, and this meant that global trade was possible on a massive scale, and hence the harbor was expanded. These advancements brought unimagined wealth to the city, resulting in a real estate boom, many spin-off industries, and many grand examples of turn-of-the-century American architecture. All the while, the oil industry was evolving behind the scenes. Little did most people suspect that upon hitting critical mass, LA would be transformed. In 1892, Edward L. Doheny set up what most agree was LA's very first oil well, not far from the location of present-day Dodger Stadium, triggering the California oil boom. As you can imagine, everyone wanted a piece of the action, including a subsidiary of the Southern Pacific Railroad named Pacific Coast Oil Company. Although formed in 1870 to manage the railroad's interest in oil, the company quickly grew through mergers and acquisitions to the point of scandal when the U.S. Supreme Court ordered the dissolution of Standard Oil's stake in the corporation, resulting in the creation of the Richfield Oil Corporation in 1926, as well as the need for a symbol of their success. Richfield Oil Company sought to demonstrate its success with an architectural showcase of a new headquarters in a prime location on 6th and Flower Streets in downtown LA. The architectural firm, Morgan, Wells & Clements, was chosen to design the masterpiece. They were well regarded and had designed several notable buildings in the area, including the Mayan Theater and the Chapman Market. The Richfield Tower's design and ornamentation were meant to convey a sense of wealth, modernity, and corporate success. The building symbolized the oil industry's impact on the growth and development of Los Angeles during the California oil boom. Once the design was finalized, the construction site at the intersection of 6th and Flower in downtown LA was prepared. Existing structures on the site were demolished to make way for the new tower. Unfortunately, the specific details of the buildings that were demolished have not been extensively documented. Still, it is known that the site underwent significant clearing and preparation for the new tower. So if any historians from the area might have a deeper knowledge on this topic, please do get in touch with me so that we can make a follow-up video as a live stream interview or maybe a members-only video. Once the site was clear, foundation work was followed by structural frames and exterior construction. And finally, ornamental exterior details. The building featured elaborate terracotta ornamentation, a hallmark of the Art Deco style. Skilled artisans and craftsmen meticulously installed decorative elements, including sunbursts, floral motifs, and geometric patterns. The red and blue color scheme was carefully applied to create a visually striking facade. On the inside, builders installed floors, walls, elevators, electrical systems, plumbing, and other necessary infrastructure typical for buildings of the time. After just 1 year of construction, Richfield Tower had its grand opening in 1928, immediately becoming the pride of LA. From day one, it was admired for its height, grace, and unusual design, featuring a bizarre stepped ascension and internal courtyard. But it was inside the building where the true glory could be admired. The ground floor had several street-level access points for pedestrians, visiting occupants like Western Union, the drugstore, a tailor shop, postal and telegraph services, or the parking garage. The grand doors that we mentioned at the top of this video were located on South Flower Street, opening to an atmosphere of Art Deco ambience, elegant lighting, high ceilings, and luxury furniture. Beyond the lobby was a bank of LA's 6 most elegant elevators, servicing the building's 12 stories of office space. These offices almost all enjoyed natural light thanks to the building's midsection skylight system. On the 13th floor, towards the building's northern face, was a door that provided utility roof access, as well as an elevated mechanical room. On the 14th floor was the tower's tank room, supplying the bathrooms with hot and cold water. Then we have the 15th story, which was the penthouse roof with ventilation fixtures, fan rooms, and various drainage systems. Down below ground, the building was fitted with 3 basement levels, comprised of the grand elevator bank's pit, boiler room, storage, and curiously, an automobile elevator. Accessible via a ramp on South Flower Street, drivers could park their cars underground and out of the LA heat, then take a few flights of stairs to the lobby from where they'd catch the elevator to the office. Richfield Tower was also fitted with a massive radio beacon, an element that became an icon of LA and was part of a far more innovative scheme. On Friday, May the 17th, 1929, the Eagle Rock Centennial headlines celebrated the completion of a $10 million chain of highway, airway beacon towers, networked throughout villages from Canada to Mexico. You see, the concept was for Richfield to complete a network of beacons located approximately 50 miles apart on major roads to act as a night lane for aviators traveling north to south for guidance. At the same time, motorists would also know that just ahead would be a Richfield station. These sites were being developed on semicircular tracts of land, generally outside of incorporated cities, where restrictions would not forbid the erection of such towers. Hence, the tower on top of Richfield Building was a nod to that concept. I should also point out that it was functional as well, as the oil corporation operated a radio station known as KFI on the upper floors of its building. Aesthetically, the beacon served as an important urban landmark, reinforcing the brand's dominance and underlining its dedication to the technology of the day. Even so, both the tower and the beacon were not long for this world. With the unprecedented success of the automobile, Richfield Oil expanded to the point that they outgrew their tower. To make matters worse, many Americans of the 1960s saw these historic Art Deco buildings as creepy, unwelcoming places. You see, the modernist movement sought to break away from historical and ornate styles like Art Deco and embraced a more minimalist, functional, and industrial aesthetic. In the 60s, modernist architects and designers favored clean lines, simple forms, and a focus on functionality over ornamentation. In fact, they viewed ornamentation as excessive and indulgent. Some attest that this was the result of social activism during the post-war boom when the civil rights movement took center stage. The aesthetics of Art Deco were demonized and perceived as relics of a bygone era, and many people saw what was presented as a fresh and forward-looking approach to design. So corporations got on board accordingly, by demolishing many of America's most treasured examples of architecture. So when it was announced that Richfield Tower would be demolished to make way for a more functional building, there were those who rejoiced in the name of progress and others who mourned the loss of their heritage. And so it was. They got out the wrecking ball on November the 12th, 1968, and the building was gone by the spring of the next year. Not much remains of Richfield Tower in modern culture, but there are a few exceptions. Professor David Gebhard published a small illustration volume on the building before its demolition. The publication was forgotten in storage for over a decade before 3 of the 4 figures were mounted outside the UCSB Student Health Center in 1982, with the 4th figure remaining incomplete and in storage. The tower was also featured in the 1970s film Zabriskie Point shortly before its demolition. Otherwise, all that was left behind were the 2 Art Deco doors proudly displayed within the modern monstrosity that has replaced it. The funny thing about this story is that I don't believe the company that built Richfield Tower had any special devotion to the meaning of the artistry one way or another. On the contrary, they just did what corporations always do: capitulate to what they perceive as popular opinion when they aren't the ones trying to make the opinion anyhow. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that matter, so get in touch in the comments or hit me up on Instagram. And until next time, I'm Ryan Sokesh, signing off.